the different generations, often feel distant from feminism. This is also true for young women. They often don't recognize themselves in the traditional feminist theories and the visions of gender equality that they create. And young men often feel distant from the anti-sexist politics that no longer speak to their experience of masculinities. So in gender work, we have to recognize diversity and difference across generations. And we have to be careful not to assume that the models of an older generation will somehow fit or illuminate the experience of a younger generation. We need the courage to think in different ways. And we need to recognize how young men and women are shaping different kinds of relationships in which questions of violence still exist, but often that violence can often be turned inward and against the self. So the questions of violence and the terrible violence in relationship to domestic violence and sexual harassment at work frame experiences that need to both be honored as we develop different ways of working with perpetrators of violence in order to be able to shape those conceptions in different ways. We have to be able to revision different conceptions of masculinity and give different generations of men the experience that they can both be active in relationship to stopping violence at the same time as they transform their own masculinities. So it's not a question of seeing or understanding masculinities exclusively as relationships of power, as if masculinity has to be deconstructed, and as if masculinities are always or necessarily relationships of violence. In Nicaragua, in Cantera, a group that's done such important work and which emerged out of the scars of the Civil War, in which returning militants who had been part of a Sandinista struggle found that they were acting violently in their relationships with their partners. Learning from the experience of Nicaragua and a film that was shown in which an older man who was actually at a bullfight, a cockfight, was offered a leaflet by a Cantera activist saying, "Are you against violence?" And this older man said, "Real men are not violent to their partners." So it's a question of recognizing what real men can be as both vulnerable, open, loving, and intimate in their relationships, at the same time as they are committed to a struggle for greater gender equality. As I was preparing this talk, I was listening to the wonderful Mexican singer, Lila Downs, and the CD that she makes, and probably people know it, Una Sangre, where she calls upon the memory of José Martí, an important figure in the struggle for liberation in Latin America, saying, "The soul emanates, equal and eternal, from the diverse bodies." So teaching us about the richness of diversity and a new vision of a democratic politics. Martí goes on, "He who encourages and propagates the opposition and hate among the nations sins against humanity." So what we are doing in these days, revisioning within specific cultures a different conception of masculinity, is in fact revisioning a different conception of what it means to be human, and to challenge a rationalist tradition that worked to discount the dignity and integrity of emotional life. Because only when we are in touch with our own emotional life do we feel the pain that we cause to others through indifference, through putting people down, through not listening, through ridiculing, through hitting, through breaking bones. Lila Downs sings another song called Dignified, the ballad of Dina Ojoya, in which she reminds us of what we should never forget. I'm quoting, "At night, you can hear a cry. It comes from afar. Down south, they say, it's the voice of silence. In this closet, there are skeletons hiding. Because a woman fought for her rights."